Good evening. I want to welcome you to another segment of the Jermaine Brown Sports Talk Show. Today is Wednesday, November the 2nd, 2022. I'm going to do something that I rarely do. I'm going to talk about two different individuals in two different sports. Both of them play here in the metropolitan area of New York. One is Kyrie Irving, the other one is Zach Wilson. They're not interlinked or anything like that, but I felt that their topics needed to be spoke about differently. So let's start with Kyrie Irving. You know, there's an old saying that hell was paved with through good intentions. You might have had good intentions. I understand what you was trying to do, but you didn't think things through clearly. You didn't understand the ramifications of what it was you was doing. What am I talking about? And before I get into what I'm talking about, I want to start off by saying I do not believe, even though Kyrie Irving is accused of being an anti-Semite, I do not believe he's anti-Jewish or again. I do not believe that. But Kyrie is not the thinker that Kyrie likes to think he is. Because a smart thinker would have known not to show your hand. Don't let people know what you're thinking. That's what a smart thinker knows. Go back to the 48 laws of power. You would know that a thinker is a thinker. He doesn't let everybody know what he's thinking or what he believes. It's learning how to keep things to yourself. As my aunt would say, never let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Okay? And since Kyrie and these young African Americans, these young blacks today love putting all their business out in the street for everybody to know, it hurts you. Just like it hurt Kanye, it's now going to hurt Kyrie Irving. Because you didn't understand that. Yes, I understand, you're trying to be pro-black, and that's good. And there's nothing wrong with being pro-black. But you have to understand that sometimes there are materials out there while trying to support you may be seen or deemed as reducing someone else. And that link that you posted seems to be one of the cases. Okay? Where the Rolling Stones magazine basically called it an anti-Semite or anti-Semitism piece. Now, it is on Amazon. And truthfully, if it's an anti-Semitic piece, Amazon should take it down. But that's another story for another day. And that was Kyrie's argument, but Kyrie must understand that just because Amazon refused to take it down doesn't mean you're at liberty to post it. Now, you would say you was trying to look up what your name mean in Hebrew or in, or something to that nature, and that's all nice and good. But I don't know if you read the movie, saw the movie or read the book. But you should have really took into account, well, how is this going to look if I post this? Because if you did any kind of reviews on the book, obviously that Rolling Stone thing would have told you this is an anti-Semitic piece. That should have given you some pause right there about posting that link. But that didn't stop you before from posting controversial links. Like Alex Jones. It's like, what are you doing? Are you trying to ruin your career? Are you trying to be a martyr? What is it? What are you hoping to accomplish? Well, I just agree with something he said. But again, he's considered a hate individual. So just because you agree with something he said, is that means that you should be posted and let the world know what you're thinking? That's stupid. That's not smart. That's not intelligent. Oh, but I'm a free-thinking black man. No, you're not. You're just now being an idiot, because here's what's going to happen now. You took down the post. So why did you take it down? If you stand by what was stated in that movie or that book or that piece that you put the link on, why did you take it down? It's my question to you. Because see, now you look even worse. Taking it down is like a form of an apology. You do understand that. What that tells everybody was you couldn't stand the heat that was coming down on you. You couldn't handle it. So then you shouldn't have posted it to begin with. And then I heard Shannon Sharp say, okay, but, and Charles Barkley, the NBA should have suspended him. The NBA should have did this. The NBA should have did that. Here's what I think the NBA is going to do. And notice, yes, the NBA, other than putting out a statement and the owner putting out a statement, they've been conspicuously quiet on this. Here's what I believe is going to go down. Now, Kyrie Irving is supposed to be meeting with the ADL, which is the Anti-Defamation League, I think sometime this week or next week or something like that. But here's what I think is getting ready to go down. They're going to quietly Craig Hodges him. What do I mean by that? Craig Hodges, back in the late 80s, early 90s, when he was with the Bulls, okay? He was a sharpshooter, three-point shooter. He was a great three-point shooter. He wanted to protest the beating of Rodney King. So he went to Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson, two of the biggest figures in the sport at the time, about having a boycotting of the game or something to that nature. And they weren't going to do that because at the end of the day, listen, folks, they paid a lot of money to play the games. I hate to say this, but that's the reality. So then after the Bulls won the chip in 91, he goes to the White House. Now, they was told, do not give anything to the president. Do not show up the president. Don't do anything like that. He showed up in an African dashiki, which is not the appropriate attire for going to the White House. Now, personally, I got no problem with that, you wearing that. But you got to understand that you are dealing with corporations here. You're dealing with a league here. And they dictate what you can and cannot do. They dictate that. I'm sorry. That's the reality. So basically, when you did that, you got blackballed out the league. Craig Hodges. That's what I sense they're getting ready to do with Kyrie. Kyrie Irving contract ends at the end of this year. They're going to just probably quietly, because remember, Kyrie requested to be traded at the end of last season, this offseason. And there were no takers other than the Lakers. No one was interested. Now you got this coming out where you're now being accused of being anti-Semitic. You're going to have even less of a taker now. And I hear some blacks say, and some blacks that I actually even respect and like say, well, first of all, it was none of the owner's business to come out and make that statement. Yes, it is. Because when I'm paying your money, when I'm giving you a check, I have say over what you say and do. Because you know what? When you affect my bottom line or my business, because remember, as a team owner, I answer also the corporate sponsors and advertisers and stuff like that. And so if you piss them off, that affects me. I have the right to tell you, yo, that's not appropriate, and you're going to apologize. I have that right. I have that right to exert my influence on the situation. What world do you think you're living in? Just because you're highly paid, you think you're free? No, you're not. You work for me. And let's be quite frank. Let's just be frank about it. You're my slave. I tell you what you can and cannot do. That's the reality at the situation. Matter of fact, Bill Roding wrote a great book called $40 Million Slave. Go look it up. It doesn't matter how many millions you have. When you work for somebody else, you're their slave. That's the reality. So, Kyrie Irving, there's always been some controversy when it comes to him. You've been more of a headache than what you've been worth. You've been here now for about 4 years, and each year there's always some issue with you. There's always some reason you're in the news, and it don't have nothing to do with on the court. The Nets is ruining the day that they signed you. And they can't wait to get from underneath your contract. And trust me, once you're underneath it, get from underneath it, listen, you're going to have a hard time finding work around the league. And that hurts another black go, well, why don't he demand a trade? Because the owner was out of pocket for tweeting. And I thought the owner should have handled that better. The owner should have pulled him into the office and said, no, bro. No. But he didn't. He tweeted out his response, Joe Tsai, and that's fine. Even though I thought he could have handled that better. But, excuse me. But I heard some blacks say, well, he should demand to be traded since the owner went against him, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, wait a minute, folks. What world do you live in? I said, first of all, the commissioner is Jewish, which he is. Most of your owners are Jewish. And if they're not Jewish, the remainder of them are Jewish sympathizers. So where do you think you're going if you are deemed anti-Semitic? Where do you think you're going? You do understand that that's the one label where it doesn't matter your talent at that point. That's the one, once you get that label that you're anti-Semitic, you're done. That's where it doesn't matter your talent. They're going to remove you. Because why? You're bad for business. And that's the reality. And so I sense that's why the NBA did not suspend him. So then this way, when he tries to go and sue them for saying that they blackballed him, they can say no, because we didn't suspend him when we could have. We didn't know. We're not punishing him. Because remember, it's not a right to work in the NBA. It's a privilege. It's not a right. They don't have to employ you. Just as long as they don't put out to either other, like those idiotic owners in the NFL, don't sign so-and-so and so-and-so, as long as they don't do that and collude, you can't prove, even though we know you're being blackballed, you can't prove it. Like Colin Kaepernick. If the owners did not leave a paper trail, Kaepernick could not have won his case. But because they left paper trails, they were stupid, idiotic, whether it was through text or emails, they put out, hey, you're not to sign so-and-so, which in this case, Kaepernick. That was how Kaepernick can prove collusion. Because why? Open the books. If there was no collusion, open the book. The NFL, oh, no, we can't allow that, so here, we'll settle. See, the NFL has a lot of secrets that they don't want out. And speaking of the NFL, that brings me now to Zach Wilson. Well, before I get to Zach Wilson, well, Jermaine, if you are the owner of the Brooklyn Nets, how would you handle this situation? I was telling a colleague of mine today, or a friend of mine today, I would just blow this up. I would cut Kyrie Irving, pay you the remainder of your salary, just go away. Because why? Even if you get past this controversy, you're going to stir up another controversy because this is what you do. This is who you are. You like to stir things up. And it has nothing. And see, everything is about anything but the sport of basketball. We're always talking about you when it has nothing to do with the sport of basketball. Whether it was the bubble, the vaccine, or it's always something with you. He has basically detonated this franchise. He's brought shame and disgrace to this franchise. But I don't blame him. I blame the Nets organization. Because the Nets organization should have stood up to him and let him know, if you don't play, you don't get paid. It's that simple. That means they should have dug in last year. You're not playing the home games, you don't get paid for those home games. And we're not changing our policy for you. You should have dug in your heels, but you didn't. You acquiesced. And see, that made it even worse. So you got to get control of your franchise. So what I would do, I would just blow it up. I would release Kyrie Irving. Say, now you're free to sign with whoever. Here's the remainder of your contract. Here you go. Boom. Just get out the hell out of my sight. I would trade KD at the first chance I get. I'm moving KD. KD, you're out of here. I don't need a guy whose game is alpha, but whose mentality is beta. You allowed this guy to run this franchise amok, and I blame you. But yet, secretly behind the scenes, you're manipulating things. You was the reason why Steve Nash got fired. Let's just keep it real. And you try to pretend like you didn't know that he got fired. You had nothing to do with this. Stop it. I can't stand when players do that. That's like throwing rocks and hiding your hand. Don't do that. You want to make a big boy decision, then stand by it. Now, you don't have to disrespect the guy, but you could have just simply said, look, it wasn't personal with Steve Nash. I just didn't think he was good enough to coach this team. And leave it. Because everybody knows you was responsible for getting him fired. Everyone knows this. That's no secret. Everyone knows this, that you played a big hand in him getting fired. So just live with it. Now this brings me back to the NFL and Zach Wilson. Everyone knows I'm a Jets fan as well. So, okay, I'm a Nets, Jets, Mets, Islanders fan. And the 49ers is my West Coast team in football. But when this is not about the 49ers, this is about the Jets. Zach Wilson, I'm going to give you this warning. And you better hear me and hear me clearly. If you don't improve your play or make better decisions, forget improve your play, be a better decision maker, you're not going to last in this league as a starting quarterback. Do not buy what Robert Saleh, the head coach of the Jets, and Joe Douglas, the GM of the Jets, is saying publicly. That is their job to say publicly. Just like, let's go back a year, the same time a year ago. Kevin Stefanski, Baker is our guy. He's not healthy right now, but he's our guy. We have full confidence in Baker. Andrew Berry, we have full confidence that Baker is our long-term answer. Quarterback. Then come March, they trade for Deshaun Watson. Well, Andrew Berry, when did y'all start the process of vetting Deshaun Watson? Oh, back in October, 5 months ago. But wait a minute, you said you had confidence in Baker. Yes. Now, they didn't lie, even though they do tell lies. And confidence in Baker to finish the season. They never said, and they did lie. They said that he was the long-term answer. They believed in him as the long-term answer. That was a lie. Teams lie, folks. Teams tell lies. And what happens is this. GMs and coaches start planning for the offseason, not when the offseason gets here. They don't wait till the end of the season to start planning for the offseason. I just want you to know that. They start planning for the offseason around this time, around the trade deadline. When they're making moves or lack of moves, it tells you what they think about the players on their team, the talent on their team. And here's why I say you're in some danger. See, Elijah Moore is a wide receiver who plays for the Jets, who's under his rookie deal. Now, he's an outspoken individual. And especially here in New York, the media and the fans don't like guys who are outspoken. And I'm pretty certain Joe Douglas don't care for outspoken individuals. And he came out and requested a couple of weeks ago to be traded from the Jets. And when he was recently asked after this past Sunday's game about his relationship with Zach Wilson, he says, I don't have one. Because why? I don't get the ball or anything like that. I don't have one. To know if I have a relationship. And he didn't get traded? That's curious. That's curious. So you know what the Jets brass is really saying? You're the reason why he's struggling or why he's not getting the ball. Why do I say that? Go back to, again, a year prior. Odell Beckham on the Cleveland Browns. Odell Beckham not getting the ball. Odell Beckham not happy. Odell Beckham requests to be traded. The Browns said, we're not trading him. Then Odell Beckham's father comes out with a hit piece against Baker showing all the times that Odell was open and Baker never looked his way to throw him the ball or looked his way but didn't throw him the ball. So now they release Odell Beckham. But notice how the team did not come to Baker Mayfield's defense. They came to Odell Beckham's defense. And then Odell Beckham goes to the Rams, plays well, wins a Super Bowl, and now Baker's out of a job. Now, why is that relevant? Look at the parallels to this. Elijah Moore speaking out. Elijah Moore requesting to be traded. The Jets saying, we're not trading you. And the Jets still keeping him. They're not going to cut him like Cleveland did Odell because he's not making big money. So they're not cutting him. And he's on his rookie deal. So they're not cutting him. So what they're secretly saying is, you're the reason why Elijah Moore is struggling. You're the reason why. That's what they're saying without saying it. Okay? And keep in mind that when you was having that meltdown this past Sunday, notice who had his helmet on his head. Mike White. Mike White was announced as the backup before the game. And the backup never has his helmet on unless he's getting ready to come into the game. Usually he's due to injury or whatever. Or the game done got so far out of hand, they just say, all right, look, we'll just have you take some snaps. But that game was never really out of hand. And for the backup to have his helmet on, that means they were contemplating benching you for Mike White. And even though they say, and then notice what they put out. It's our intention for him to be the starter the remainder of the year or something to that effect. Our plan is for him to be the starter the remainder of the year. Guess what? Plans change. And if you have another game like what you did on Sunday, because that made it look as if you didn't belong in the league. Forget being a starting quarterback. You didn't even look like you was a backup quarterback. Then you got Dan Orlovsky, Kurt Warner, Trent Dilfer all ripping you for your lack of reading defenses and other things. Don't think your GM is not hearing this or seeing this. Don't think your head coach is not hearing this or seeing this. Yes, the Jets is 5-3 or whatever their record is, but they're doing it. It's not because of you. You're not the reason why they're 5-3. You're not the reason why they have the winning record. It's like if you're not. They're not winning necessarily in spite of you. So I kind of disagree with some of the New York media who say they're winning in spite of him. I don't believe they're winning in spite of him. They're winning with him. But you're not the reason why you're doing it. And when you're the number 2 pick, you're supposed to be the reason why the team is winning. And you haven't really shown that, at least not consistently. And so don't think Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh is not making evaluations right now. They are. That's why the rumor is, of a Jimmy G coming this offseason. So here's what I suspect is going to go down. They probably won't go the route of a Jimmy G or Derek Carr or something like that, who's going to be available this offseason, because it's going to be expensive to bring them in. But here's what I could see the Jets doing. I can see the Jets using a second-round pick, because I don't believe they'll use a first-round pick. But I can see the Jets using a second-round pick, similar to what Philadelphia did a few years ago when they had Carson Wentz, and they used a second-round pick on Jalen Hurts. And they say it was for insurance. Okay? I can see the Jets using a second-round pick or the quarterback for insurance. What that really means is they want another option in the event that they want to bench you or cut you or whatever. The Jets brass is not as sold on you as they publicly are letting everybody know they are. And how do I know this? Because all they have to say is, listen, Zach Wilson, barring injury, will be the starter for the remainder of the season. They didn't say that. Zach Wilson, barring injury, is our long-term answer past even this year. They didn't say that either. And even if they did, do you really believe them, knowing that teams lie? So what I'm saying, Zach, is if you don't take care of the ball, they're going to get you out of there. The fans, and whether it's fair or not, this is the reality. The fans is already calling for your benching for Mike White. Because, see, not only was you the number 2 pick, okay, but you was picked over another player who, in my opinion, should have been picked at the number 2 pick, ahead of you. And that's Justin Fields. You're being compared to him. Whether you realize it or not, and I sense he knows it, he's being compared to him. Because why? These are your peers. You're being compared to Mac Jones. You're being compared to Trey Lance. Because these are guys who came after you. So you're being compared to them. But particularly Justin Fields. That's your main competition. And because he really should have been the number 2 quarterback taken. I say number 1, but it would have been impossible to take him over Trevor Lawrence. So at the very least, number 2. He should have been the number 2 quarterback off the board because he didn't really do anything to deserve being taken off that number 2 slot. But I have my reasons as to why they do it. They did it. And it wasn't all because of on the field, too. And he didn't do anything off the field to deter. But there's other factors that were at play that I believe why they chose Zach Wilson over Justin Fields. And when they saw Justin Fields cut up that New England defense just a week prior with both his arm and his legs, and then you come out and you give up that performance against that same New England defense, don't think that they're saying, you know what, we drafted the wrong guy. Now, they'll never publicly say it, but again, actions speak louder than words. Look at what the Bears have done. The Bears was tearing down their organization. Roquan Smith and other defensive players they got rid of, weakening their defense. And then they turned around and used a number 2 pick on a wide receiver, Chase Claypool. What they're telling you is, we believe in Justin Fields. See, that's now putting words to action. I mean, actions to words. That's now putting actions to words. We believe in Justin Fields. Because why? Justin was doing more with less. And they all knew it, and everyone knew it. And so you are being compared to Justin Fields. And so if your play doesn't pick up, and I sense you know this is why you did what you did on Sunday. Because I believe that when you went against New England, you remember what took place the week before with Justin Fields. So you tried to show that you could outdo him. And I believe that's why you did what you did. Because that had to have been like the worst game of your career. I've never seen it's like, dude, don't ad-lib. Just run the offense the way it's called. Don't ad-lib. Just run the offense the way it's called. You do have arm talent. No one disputes that. But you're going to need more than talent to survive in this league. You're going to need discipline, something you're lacking. And again, you're getting what is called the Baker Mayfield effect. What is the Baker Mayfield effect? When you're more known for off-the-field stuff than you are on the field. Like Baker Mayfield with those Heisman commercials, those progressive commercials. He was more, and I love those commercials, by the way, especially the progressive ones, as well as the Heisman. But the problem is your play on the field wasn't matching what you was doing off the field. Teams don't want that. Now, Zach Wilson is you with your mother, who's considered very attractive, and all of what took place off the field, this off season. You're more known for off the field than on, and that's not a good thing, especially when your performance doesn't warrant it or doesn't match up. So all I'm just saying is you better be careful because you're in danger of losing your job. Whether I don't care what the coach would say, you're in danger of losing your job. I want to thank you for watching another segment of Jermaine Brown Sports Talk Show. Have a good evening.